Hey everybody, welcome to this roundtable for episode 3. Well, let's talk free trade, which is what this episode's all about, and how the more people are allowed to trade freely between each other in communities, states, or even between countries, the more stuff you can make, the better stuff you can make.
Why don't you trade a couple of these canvases with Miss Stalin and her boyfriend, and they'll give you some pencils? Free trade, get stuff made.
I don't remember how we stumbled on art projects, but we felt like, okay, if we have an art project that's due, and there's that ticking clock, they need to do it. If they don't trade, to get the right things to make this art project, they're gonna get an F.
It was very collaborative in the way that we came upon this concept of doing it in the school with an art project. One group, the enemies, the bad guys, have the art supplies, and the other group, Ethan and Emily, have the canvases, and they need each other in order to get the best stuff together.
And why didn't the twins just go back and just get a pencil?
Don't point out plot holes in front of the audience. You mean
because there's no teaching lesson.
There's no teaching. Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, that's right. Grandma
right.
dropped him off. She never makes things easy. I will say that.
Yeah.
We have that going for it. Like, she doesn't use the wheelchair as like a convenient way to escape problems, right?
Except when she does.
Except when she does.
QC.
Want a scram?
The thing that's been really impressive to me in learning entrepreneurship is that it's never like a one-person project. There's a whole team involved. Think about when you watch the credits on the Tuttle twins show at the end, how many people are involved in doing this? How many people are involved in even just the books? It's Elijah and I together figuring out doing the books, but we can't print the books. We can't do all the online marketing and stuff. Like, we need a lot of people to help us with everything. And so to me, it's like you were saying during the writing process, that it was collaborative to come up with these ideas. Entrepreneurship, I feel like, is also collaborative because you need other people.
We have something you need, and you have something we need. Oh, I guess.
We're seeing a lot of tribalism in the United States, but just militant tribalism in the world is something that gets resolved by free trade. And that's actually one of the benefits of animation, is you can do these over-the-top things to visually demonstrate this. Like we have at the end, Grandma says, a really fast montage, and we get to see these two tribes grow together who were originally separate and didn't share any of their resources, but through simply trading, their societies merge and combine, and even their architecture starts to get similar. And so it's a really fun visual.
Just using a metaphorical fantasy land to show opposing sides, like you said, enemies that don't want to trade just because of their differences, is, I think, a really clear way to do that.
Oh, we do not talk with the ice creamers. They are the worst.
What are the things that we see in real life become barriers to people trading freely? I mean, we talk about in one of them in the episode that maybe they're just enemies, right, to begin with. But what are some of those things that make people into enemies?
It's the governments not liking what other governments are doing, even though the people may not have many problems with one another. I'll share a brief example. One of the ways that you can inhibit free trade or create a problem for free trade is with something like an embargo, where you basically, the government says you can't trade, with that country, or even a tariff where they basically tax the trade to slow it down or stop it. And think of a country like Iran. The United States government in particular has been really frustrated with Iran and seeing it as an enemy. And so there's an embargo and you can't trade, and they freeze bank accounts, and they do all these things to like punish Iran. What's really interesting is there's a guy by the name of Rick Steves, and he's basically a professional traveler. And so he'll go and he'll shoot movies, documentaries, in different countries, and he'll tell people what it's like. He went to Iran and he showed how beautiful the country is. The food was amazing. The people were kind, and people he would interview, he would say, look, our governments are mad at each other, but we love America, right? And so here you have an example of the government punishing trade, whereas the normal people are like, I'm not part of that, right? I still want to trade, but the government is like preventing it from happening. And so you think like these people, if we could interact more with one another, there would be more collaboration, and there would be more like community and relationships. But when the governments get mad and they kind of shut that down, and you can't travel and you can't trade, it prevents that from happening.
Yeah.
It's the parents fighting and the kids just
Kids are like, we just want to hang out.
We just want to hang out.
Right.
The play date.
That's right.
Yeah.
What were some of the favorite parts in the writing process for you?
I mean, we had a lot of fun with Adam Smith. We feel like he's the father of capitalism,
Yeah.
and he's also a Scottish person. So we took a lot of liberties.
We were mostly historically accurate in that he was Adam Smith. And then he talked about the invisible hand. And from there we kind of departed, right?
Deviated.
And he's
So,
Scottish,
you know,
right?
we do have, for some of the adults, a Matrix reference.
I know Kung Fu.
We also have
Braveheart reference.
Braveheart when he jumps out of the
He yells,
wheelchair.
yells freedom.
Who's to say if he landed okay? I don't know.
The fact that he changed the course of history with his own brand of pencils.
That was kind of a cool moment where we're like, wait, when was a pencil invented? Oh, it was 2 years after Adam Smith died?
Yeah.
So kind of a fun way to tie that in.
Coincidence.
Yeah, we needed a way for him to be able to teach the kids without having actually lived through the history of the pencil itself. So that's why we did the drinking of the knowledge juice and thought it was kind of a fun sort of way to solve that of him like, ooh, it catches him up to speed. Whereas if anyone drinks knowledge juice, they're clearly going to die on the spot. I don't know.
Don't drink it at home, kids.
Rocket fuel.
Is that safe to drink?
We'll find out in about 10 seconds.
What are some of your favorite jokes?
I just love Cookies and Steve. I wanted to do more with Cookies and Steve.
I scream, you scream, we all scream. Because ice cream gives us frostbite!
Thank you for sharing your truth, Cookies and Steve.
I think I like the dances with Derek.
Stop with the TikToks, Derek.
I like Bruce. Bruce, he's so dumb throughout the whole episode, and then at the end, Ethan offers to trade, and he says, very self-aware, he says, I know you see me as a bully, but my purpose on the show is to serve as a metaphor for nations who refuse trade and are thus excluded from the mutual benefits that come with it. I'm a big fan of these really long diatribe, teachy jokes that really subvert how dumb he was.
I also really liked the adventure with the pirates, like the way we start out right into it with flying through space with the pirates, and I really want the pirates to make a comeback at some point because they're such fun characters.
Where there's a will, there's a way.
there's a will.
You can
I
talk
might
to
have a
someone
scene
about that? Yeah.
So as we talk about these ideas about free trade, we wanted to make sure to bring someone on who has a lot of experience seeing how this stuff plays out in the real world. So we were able to bring on Larry Reed, who is the president of the Foundation for Economic Education. And Daniel, you were able to have a pretty fun conversation with him about what this looks like through all his travels and his experience.
Yeah, I got to interview him and see his insights, and here are some of them. Thank you so much for taking time, Larry, to answer a few questions for us.
My pleasure, Daniel. Thank you for having me.
You've done a lot of traveling, right, Larry?
Yes.
How many countries have you visited?
87 countries, and some of them as many as 15 times.
Oh, wow. What are some examples of how you see free trade stopped by different countries, and what are the consequences of that?
Well, bananas used to be rather expensive in Europe because until 2012, the European Union put tariffs or a tax on bananas coming from Latin America. It's hard to imagine why they would do that because you can't grow bananas in Europe very easily. Finally, in 2012, they got rid of those banana tariffs, and now more people can get bananas and get them cheaper today in Europe than was the case in 2012 and before.
If there's so many benefits to this, then why does anyone want to restrict or stop free trade?
The answer to that question, Daniel, is the same as the answer would be to the question, why do some people rob banks? Well, that's because the robber thinks he's going to get away with it. Maybe he will. And if he does, you might say, well, he benefited because he got the money that he took from the bank. But that would ignore the fact that lots of other people who aren't quite so visible in this story, they get hurt. The people who put their money in the bank now, they don't have it. The bank doesn't have it. So the robber has simply benefited himself at the expense of everybody else. So it's the same with a tax on imports. It may protect a few businesses that don't like the competition coming from other countries, but they can get that protection only if everybody else is hurt as consumers, because then we have fewer choices to make in the marketplace, fewer opportunities, and higher prices to pay.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experience with us and all your research. And I think the takeaway is that free trade gets stuff made, right?
Yeah,
It's a recipe for success for everybody.
it sure is.
So, main takeaway from this episode is
Pen
Free
Trade
trade makes
always.
the world better.
yes. Now that you've seen this episode, obviously you've seen the benefits of free trade, how everything we have around us is because of that. And so, yeah, we want to see as few barriers to that as possible. So go out and trade with your neighbors, your bullies, your friends, all the above. Hi, Karinne.
What do you want?
You called me.
Tomatoes, tomatoes.
Did you have any complaints about last week's episode?
I don't only have complaints. What makes you think I only called to complain? Ugh, whatever. In the episode, you say no one can make a pencil by themselves. I could.
Tell you what, if you can gather all the thousands of materials from all around the world without relying on any supply chain, transportation, or free trade to make a pencil, you can have my job.
Ugh, fine, I can't. But in the episode, you make it seem like free trade is some fantastical process where everything just magically comes together to make stuff. But free trade hurts people.
What do you mean?
My uncle used to make toys that he would sell to a big store in town, but then they started getting the same toys for cheaper from far away and stopped buying his. He lost a lot of money, and so he had to fire people and sell his toy horsey. I really miss those horsies.
That's a fair point and something we didn't address yet in the episode. It's kind of the trade-off with free trade. Free trade can sometimes result in a small amount of people losing jobs within a country because that work is being done somewhere else. On the flip side, if we let people and companies trade with each other openly, it can make better products that are cheaper for everyone and even better quality. That's the only reason you can buy good quality pencils for a few cents instead of tens of dollars. So with free trade, a small amount of people are hurt temporarily, but the whole country and the world is helped as a whole.
Still not fair. But I do like cheap pencils. And what about bad countries? My dad says we shouldn't trade with them to punish them.
That's one way to look at it, but you know what they say, when goods and services don't cross borders, soldiers do. Anything else?
Yes. How in the world did that raccoon's TikTok get on the security camera? Was it you, the Illuminati, Ron Paul?
Karinne, I have a question for you. How did you get into the school at night?
Bye.